Book Talk with Brock. My name is Brock Peters, and in this channel, each episode I select one book to talk about and review. And I'm sure you're wondering, how could he possibly talk about The Great Gatsby? Is there anything new or insightful he could possibly say? And the answer is no, not really. I don't think I have any hidden gems of insight to add to this much talked about book. So I guess this is going to be more of a story time of my relationship with the book. So grab your milk and cookies, put on your PJs, and we'll get to it. So The Great Gatsby by F. Scott Fitzgerald. I guess the other question you could ask is, am I just talking about this book because of the recent movie that came out, Leonardo DiCaprio, so dreamy, etc., etc.? I guess a lot more people are reading the book right now because of the movie, so it's topical. But I haven't seen the film, and I have no intentions of doing so. There's no scenario I can imagine in which Hollywood doesn't ruin this book, so forget about it. I guess, in honesty, it did take this new upsurge in interest for me to get my hands on a copy in the first place. The Great Gatsby, in my mind, has always kind of fallen into that category of books from the 50s and 60s that were taught in high school that should probably be replaced with more relevant works just for the sake of holding kids' interest. Things like One Flew Over the Cuckoo's Nest, To Kill a Mockingbird, and the only one of these three that I've read actually is Catcher in the Rye. And I don't mean to disparage those books. I just feel like often it's less the literary quality and more the, well, we've got 5 boxes of these left over from the 60s kind of thing that keeps them in the schools. But as I learned, The Great Gatsby actually predates any of those 3 books by at least 25 years. I read it for the first time in August, and I've read it again since then. And the story isn't anything special. It's a fairly straightforward, tangled love story. But the writing in this book and the way that Fitzgerald really makes the characters come alive is just spectacular. For those of you who haven't read it, I won't give anything away, but the last 4 paragraphs and even the last sentence in this book are some of the best, if not the best, closing ending of a book I've ever read. And actually, now that I'm thinking about it, it's kind of hard to talk about The Great Gatsby without giving things away. Not that it's the sort of book where there is a surprise around every corner, but it's more the sort of book where the plot emerges out of the small details. Sometimes the most important emotional information in the book is not necessarily paired with the most important plot-related information. Yeah, I think my favorite thing about The Great Gatsby is these moments that Fitzgerald has constructed where as you're reading you can feel this shift and you know something big has changed, although you're not quite sure what. There's a section about 3/4 of the way through where Jay Gatsby, who's obviously the book's focus, and Nick, who's the narrator, are having this big conversation. And reading it for the second time, I realized that it's set up in this really fatalistic way. You can almost pinpoint the moment where the events of the rest of the novel feel like they're set up like dominoes, and you feel the flick, even though you're not quite sure, where it's going to end up. You just feel it. Oh, it's wild. And moments like that in the book where there's this tangible feeling of the reader having been part of something extremely important are really wonderful for me as a reader and really exciting. The other thing that F. Scott Fitzgerald does really well in this book, I think, is to build the character of Gatsby. Between the beginning of the novel, when the narrator only knows about him through myth and through other people's sort of warped ideas of him, to the end where the narrator feels like he knows just about everything there is to know about Gatsby. There's this fantastic mess of unreliable information and big revelations and false revelations, constructed identities. And I think that's one of the other reasons, besides the absolutely beautiful prose, that this novel has been so enduring, is that it's got such an intricately constructed central character and surrounded by characters who are themselves pretty interesting, although a little bit more one-dimensional than Gatsby. Anyways, the reason I wanted to talk about The Great Gatsby today was to reach out to those people who are kind of like I was 4 months ago. I've heard about the book, not really sure it's for you, don't really want to jump on the Hollywood fad bandwagon, and I'm here to tell you that it is an amazing read. Believe the hype. The hype has been going on for almost 90 years. That's The Great Gatsby by F. Scott Fitzgerald. The word of the day today is peremptory. It's one that on paper I always confuse with preemptive, but peremptory is an adjective usually used to describe a person's manner or actions, and it means insisting on immediate attention or obedience, especially in a brusquely imperious way. So in Gatsby, it's used to describe Tom Buchanan's ambiguous distress at the beginning of the book, where something was making him nibble at the edge of stale ideas, as if his sturdy physical egotism no longer nourished his peremptory heart. Tom Buchanan is actually kind of an interesting, slightly humorous character throughout the book. He's a fairly simple-minded guy who he's being bothered by something or a bunch of different somethings. And you can kind of watch him struggle with this ambiguity throughout the book. There's a runner-up to the word of the day today. It's a word I recognize because of its root, but I never heard it used in this way. It's obstetrical. Of course, it means of or relating to childbirth and associated processes, but it's used here as a synonym for sexual on page 67 of my edition, where Nick is at one of Gatsby's parties. Eluding the undergraduate, who is now engaged in an obstetrical conversation with 2 chorus girls, and who implored me to join him, I went inside. So there you have it, peremptory and obstetrical, and if you can use them together in a sentence, you get a gold star. And those are the words of the day. So thanks very much for watching Book Talk with Brock. If you'd like to learn more about me and my own writing, you can check out brockpeters.ca. If you enjoyed this video, don't forget to click the like button. Otherwise, I'm Brock Peters, and I'll see you next time.